What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Embodied Divinity, where I interview my dear friend and the founder of the Medusa Project, Diana Lopez. Before we begin, I want to offer a trigger warning. In this episode, we'll be discussing sensitive topics, including sex trafficking and other violent crimes that affect our youth. We'll explore the Medusa Project, a nonprofit advocacy program committed to shedding light on these issues and sparking change. So, if you or someone listening may be triggered by these discussions, please take care of yourself and consider whether this episode is right for you. With that said, let's dive into the depths of collective healing and the journey towards a brighter, more compassionate world. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the dark and light here on the Embodied Divinity Podcast. What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Embodied Divinity. I'm so excited. I just told you all about Diana Lopez, who's not only the creator of the Medusa Project, but a dear friend. And I'm just so excited you're here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
This is really exciting for me. I love being able to interview my friends. So I want you to start by telling us how you became the woman sitting in front of us today.
Well, I would like to say that it was an easy road, but it was
Sorry.
not. Oh, it was totally easy. I just woke up one morning, here I am. Um, no, that's not at all what happened. I came to be here kicking, screaming, crying, angry, enraged, all the things. A mutual friend of ours introduced me to you, and I believe that honestly, that is when my world changed. I came into your office. I remember the first time going into your office
Me too.
and just being very angry, scared, upset, and it was just all the things because I knew something big was going to take place in my life. And whenever something like that happens in anybody's life, obviously it's incredibly scary because we don't know what that looks like. I've never been shown what healing looks like, not in my family, not through most of my friends. I felt like I was the only one. Um, and I gotta say, going into your office, keeping that appointment, first of all, was the best decision I've ever made because I remember at one point, you said to me, if you go back to California, can you imagine all the healing you could do in the Bay Area? And I was like, I'm not doing what you're doing. There's just no way. I'm not that type of person. I don't know how you do what you do. So I kind of racked my brain and I just didn't see what that actually meant. And creating the nonprofit that I have now um, led me to open my eyes and realize, oh, that's what she meant. Like everything that I'm doing for myself and creating for myself, I am being able to pass that along to others. So obviously the topic of human trafficking is very dark and it's very deep and it's very horrific. Um, but what I want to touch on is the love and the light that we can actually show human trafficking survivors and victims um, on their path to their own healing. So, once removed from the situation, how do we impact their life? How do we show them what this road looks like beyond the scary, beyond the confusing, beyond all the things that we ourselves have gone through ourselves, right? So I think that's what the important factor of that is having to do it yourself so you can truly understand what it looks like in somebody else. And this can go not just for me as a builder of a nonprofit. Um, Part of that is because I want to get an advocacy program started, but I want this advocacy program to be something specific, like something completely different. We are moving away from people not just being trauma informed, but we want to now become trauma competent, because the way we talk with victims and survivors of horrific crimes, such as human trafficking, there is a specific, there is a science to it, right? But in order to create and evaluate that science, you have to understand how it shows up in yourself. You don't, I'm not a victim of human trafficking, at least not in this lifetime. But I do understand what trauma is. I have gone through my own several traumas in my life, and I know how it shows up in my body because I'm aware and I can see how it would show up in somebody else. Um, what the greatest thing for me in understanding this was going through your sacred soul workshops and schooling, because I know a lot of people are just like, oh, this spirituality stuff is just a bunch of blah blah blah, and fine. That, that's great. I understand. It doesn't matter if you're going reading the Bible or being supported by your priest in your church or doing therapy. But you even said, and if anybody who's listening to this has not listened to your 3-part series with Douglas White, really needs to do that, because on part 2, there was a point where you specifically said you were met the first time you met with a spiritual person, a spiritual leader, your spiritual teacher. They were not trauma informed. Do you see how now that is just so needed? Because the way you talk to somebody, the way you approach somebody in an instant can shut their light off, right? If you don't have that, I'm not asking for people to have the gift of gab. I'm just asking for people to understand you, themselves, what trauma has done to you, and then see it in other people.
Yeah.
Because how else are you going to know? Like, how else does fear show up at somebody? How does sexual violence show up in females and males? Um, having your power taken away, having your voice taken away. How is that going to show up? If you don't understand how that if you don't understand how that shows up for yourself, how are you going to understand how to talk to somebody else who's been through it?
Yeah. I think
Right.
I think your approach is so beautiful and so powerful. And I think it's really hard because the only reason I was able to hold the space for you that I could was because I mean, we've talked about our stories before. We've experienced very similar, like, violent, traumatic pasts. And so I
Mhm.
knew how to speak to you in a way that wasn't going to throw you out of your body or trigger you or make you relive that trauma. That's what you're doing in your programs now. Like, you're using your own experiences, what you felt in your body, how you regulated your nervous system, and you're approaching them from that. But I think it's really hard because you and I used to see the world through a lens of trauma. And
Right.
so that empathy and sympathy was very natural to us. But there is, thank goodness, honestly, a whole host of people who haven't had to experience deep trauma, but then they look at these survivors and they can't feel and relate to them in that way. It's almost like more of a pity or a okay, this happened, get over it type of thing, right?
Yep.
And it's really hard. And I think that's why, number one, it's so beautiful that your light shines bright enough that you can work in so much darkness. And
Mhm.
number two,
Thank you.
I'm just so excited that you've literally alchemized your life of pain and trauma, and you've created something like the Medusa Project to create more light in this world. And I want to, before we get into, like, the trauma competence, which I love that term, and really talk to people about the steps they can take if they interact with a survivor. Tell us more about the Medusa Project, how it came to be, why you care about it, and what it does.
So the Medusa Project came to be because, my regular day job is paralegal. I've been with this law firm. We do, commercial securities litigation, things like that. Big law. right? But we do also have a very big pro bono program. And within that program, I volunteered to do to be the paralegal on a lot of like immigration matters. So a lot of asylum cases, mostly women escaping violence and in their country. And then all of a sudden, I was asked to do a vacature work, which means, back and even now, right? Let's not kid ourselves. But back in the day, it was more that the victim of trafficking was the one to be arrested. And each time the trafficker, maybe if they got them, but mostly it was just always the females or the people that were in the work. Um, so now let's fast forward, and these are grown adults who are going through their healing, and but yet they're not being able to get government assistance, help with housing, all the things because of their past record. And it could look like not just prostitution charges, but drugs, because that's how the trafficker keeps them, right? Is that they dangle that golden carrot in front of them. And so it was being able to lift all those charges and get them dismissed and off their records so that way they continue their path to healing. So when I moved back to California, I thought to myself, I wanted to get into something. I wanted to help some way. So I started with volunteering at the Asian Women's Shelter in San Francisco. And just being able to work with a group of people, we did a healing group with a bunch of survivors. And a lot of the things that I learned through you and others, through, certain books and things, helped me to really pinpoint what is it that they need to be able to hear when they're not talking. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense to people, but it's when you're sitting in front of a bunch of people and just being still and looking around and going, they need something specific today. Maybe they just need to learn how to breathe. Maybe they just need to learn how to sit or wrap themselves in a blanket and do it's nothing hippie or wackadoodly, whatever the terms people like to throw at this spiritual work these days. It's just about learning how to self regulate your body. And so, in going through that, I was just like, what I'm noticing is when you go on the internet and you try to learn about human trafficking, there's plenty of information out there, but it's a bunch of words, sometimes too many words. And if I'm a teenager or I'm a kid or a teen or a young adult, the very demographic that these traffickers are trying to hone in on and take advantage of, there's nothing out there that says I'm going to be this 10-year-old and reading all these words. So I decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to build a website. I'm going to build a website that's going to have age specific materials. So that way it's easy enough, it's streamlined, they could get the gist. And all I'm doing and all I'm wanting to do is just plant that seed. That is all I'm here for.
Yeah.
I am not here to force you to shove this information down your throat. I'm here to provide you with that information and hope to God once it's planted that you'll continue to water it and grow it.
Yeah.
Just have it.
That's so
Um
powerful.
yeah.
I love that you're making it easy because so in the city in Seattle where we met,
Mhm.
um, I was a dean at a middle school there, and we would literally after school walk our girls home because there were vans waiting outside of the school because we and that's how they would take them. But like you said, a lot of the parents were immigrants or refugees, so they didn't want to talk to us to be educated because they were so scared because we don't have the system set up
Right.
to inform them that we're not trying to get them in trouble. We just want to inform them about safety for their kids. And so, like, even schools having access to this website and being able to like pass it out to their kids or for teachers to be able to say, I don't necessarily know how to have this conversation with you, which is sad, but hopefully they'll
Right.
learn one day, but here's a website that can educate you. Like this work you're doing is going to change generations and empower so many young girls and really save their lives if you think about it.
I mean, that is my dream. That is my intent. In the state of California, I believe it was in 2018, they passed legislation that human trafficking materials are to be taught in the grades 7 through 12.
Thank goodness.
They don't do it.
They don't do it in Seattle either.
So my I keep doing this. What do I'm juggling here. Like what's first? The chicken or the egg, right? Does the website go up first? And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, you know what? I want to create a campaign.
Mm,
No school left behind in the Bay Area. I want to start with a specific city. I want to just get everybody on that city government on board and go, let's make every school in your city, grades 7 through 12, having those materials. Now, whether it starts off with me, um, I do have somebody else who I've been with lived experience that is teaching me, right? Like she's here to teach me. Like she's guiding me through this. What are the key words? What are we needing to show them? What is more impactful, right? I don't want a lot of this, finger wagging and things like that. And I definitely want it to be about kids teaching other kids. So far, it has been so impactful. I have this senior in high school in San Francisco County, and she's been volunteering for my nonprofit, doing little workshops with. First, she started off with kids in her school, and then we just did one at a library, and the amount of resistance that came in the kids that I saw recently was it was funny, right? Like typical, right? Teenage, like what is this, giggling, like not really understanding. But once they really got the materials and started talking about it, two of the girls were like, "How can we help? How can I volunteer? How can I be a part of this?" That's exactly
mm,
why I'm here. That's exactly
yes.
what I want to promote. I want to promote kids healing other kids
Yeah.
because that's exactly what they need to see. And look, I realize even now, right? I always think nothing's ever going to happen to me. Like, I'm fine. You know what? Okay, fine. Nothing will ever happen to you. But what if something happens to your friend, to your sister, to your brother, to your mom, to your dad? Labor trafficking is just as prominent
Yeah.
than sex trafficking. So why not have that information that you can be the one to go, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. I learned about this. So that's why I want to start that campaign.
I love
No
it.
school left behind, start in the Bay Area, but let's get this throughout all the United States and beyond,
Yeah.
because I have big dreams.
So thank you first of all so much for sharing about what you have currently going on in the bigger vision, because I think it's so important for us to be able to invest in this vision with you. I want to zoom out to a higher perspective, right? Because that's what a
Okay.
lot of the listeners here are for.
Yep.
And I want you guys listening to realize, as we talked a couple episodes ago about oneness and we're talking about this higher level of consciousness, the shift that Diana is making by doing this work, I know it's scary. I know it's dark. I know that so many like people who claim to be high vibrational and spiritual don't want to get their feet in the dirt, right? Because they're scared of the implications of sinking into this energy level. But the impact that Diana is creating on a spiritual level is she's raising the collective conscious each interaction that she has. And if you realize that we are all one, that I am Diana and Diana is me, and I am each and every survivor that she impacts, I am each and every child that she informs, she is raising and evolving the collective consciousness for all of us. She is creating a pathway into the light for each and every person because she's brave enough to swim through the darkness and be that shining light for so many other people. And every person she brings onto this campaign is doing the same thing. And everybody who contributes to this is doing the same thing. And so if you're listening to this and you're feeling resistance, if you're feeling any triggers or activations, or if you're feeling like this place of avoidance, this is a really beautiful space to ask, what am I not looking at here that doesn't allow me to shine my light on these hard situations and to realize that regardless of the reality that I currently live in, this is happening in this human experience that I am a part of. And Diana, I'd love to know from a spiritual perspective what your viewpoint is, because I know that just from my work with trauma survivors and all of the schools I used to work with, if you aren't maintaining your energy, you can really sink down into that frequency and then you aren't a help to anyone.
Right. No, that's exactly true. I mean, I I have a story really quickly. I was helping a family through some private investigators that I'll probably be working with in the future. Um, locate their missing child, right? The girl, she's a runaway using drugs. And my first interaction with her, she screamed bloody murder at me, cussed me out, right? And all of a sudden, I was telling myself when I talk to her, I'm just going to let it flow. I'm just going to wait for the words to come, what I'm supposed to be speaking out. I'm not going to use this. I'm just going to sit in stillness, listen to what's going on, and then speak when the words come. The words never came. And I know exactly why. Instead, it was all of a sudden like even though this was on the phone, it was almost like even if I was standing in front of her, it was like me, my ego, everything moved outside of my body. And I was just a person, a bucket for her to scream into. And I just let her have it. I didn't try to interrupt her. I didn't try to overtalk her. I didn't try to calm her down. I was just letting her have it. And as I told the mom, because obviously the mom, very sweet family. That family's just filled with love, so filled with love and so connected. And the mom was just, obviously very apologetic later. And I just kind of said to her, let her have it. That's what she needs. She needs this release. That rage she is showing, she has been holding on to. So let her have it. After I got off the phone, I kind of, of course, you go through all the things. Did I do this right? Did I do that right? But honestly, that is what that I embodied, everything that I created for myself in that moment led me to go to just do that. Because if I was speaking from my ego, I would have been upset she was cussing at me. How dare she talk to an elder that way? That whole extreme dynamic. Instead, I just used love, just let her and just, smiled and like, I understand. And I'm coming from a place of love and you can have this moment because I understand why you're in such rage. And that is how I kind of perceive everything going forward, even into my nonprofit. This is not me thinking this stuff. This is me just going through whatever I need to do to unblock all the things that I need to unblock, things that are being brought up from my past, things are being brought up even in current days now, the things that are still triggers for me and working through those because they need immediately. I swear, Nikyla, it may take a few days. I may be down, depressed, and angry. And then when I start looking at myself and my spiritual awakening and how that has looked for me and how that has felt in me, and then realized, okay, there's something to be learned here. And once I learned that, all these things just start flooding in. It's like unstoppable. I can create this. I can create that. This would be a great help. Now, keep in mind, I have not been funded yet. So it's probably going to
You
be a
will
minute,
be.
but
You will be.
I'm hoping that if I get the message out with the exceptional look, we need funding,
Yeah.
it'll come.
Yeah.
Um, but I could not have done this if I use my ego. I cannot do this if I sink back into my fears. And those fears come and they come quick, almost out of nowhere. Just kind of like, hey, remember you're supposed to be scared about X, Y, and Z, how you're getting money, how you're doing this, how you doing this, how are you gonna do accounting, or something so minute that doesn't have in it. And it's like I have to, hey, think about this bigger picture here. What's really going on? What are those lessons? And a lot of it was having to connect to my inner child, and not even my inner child necessarily from this lifetime. It was from a whole other lifetime ago. And I know that may sound weird to some people that are listening to this,
Probably not.
but but having to have that look with that inner child, just me and her just going, that's what's up.
Yeah.
Like, and I just did that the other day. Like, I was so down, down, down. And I looked at her and I could feel the coldness coming over me. And me and her had this look like, that's what's up. Like, right? Like, that's how we got here. And then Bob Marley's song was on.
Mm.
Uh, Don't Worry, Be Happy. Or not Don't Worry, Be Happy. I think it was, yeah, it was Don't Worry, Be Happy. Right. Um, and I looked at her and I winked. And it was just like, that song continued to play and I smiled because I was like, yeah, we may have had that moment, but we both know we're not staying here. We're not staying in that.
Yeah. And I think that your capacity to, I've said on this podcast so many times, our capacity to hold pain and darkness is equivalent to our capacity to hold love and light. And your y- the reason that you don't get drowned by all of the darkness that you work in is because of that anchor into faith and anchor into light, and knowing that even if I'm moving through something dark right now, even if I'm witnessing something really hard and scary right now that's triggering for my inner child, I'm anchored into my purpose. I'm anchored
So,
into my light. I'm anchored into my faith, and I see the bigger picture. And I think it's that faith that is so hard for people to come by, especially when you're taking on a task as momentous as yours, right? It's like if
mhm,
you didn't have your connection with God, source, universe, whatever you desire to call it,
right.
there's no way you'd be able to take a step forward, much less have a conversation, much less create this whole campaign, right? Because you've got to have that balance of, if I'm going to hold this container for other people, I have to fill myself first.
Absolutely. And that came through another kind of thing that I did. Yeah, I did some plant medicine. And the woman that I was doing that with really had that talk with me. Like, you will not be able to keep walking this walk, talking this talk, if you don't take care of yourself. You have given enough.
Yeah.
And so I think that really helped me. First of all, it scared me, right? Because I literally want to help everybody. But it was taking that really hard look and saying to myself, one, I've helped enough people. I need to help myself.
Yeah.
And without that balance of self care and self love and really spending time with that inner child of mine from the other lifetime, because I'm telling you, when I asked her to show me her face to see what she looked like, she didn't look angry. So I don't know how else to describe this, but she looked hardened.
Hmm.
No, there was no expression on her face, just hardened. And I go, that's what I'm working with. That is why sometimes I feel the way I feel. When things are upsetting to other people, I just kind of go, all right, not that I don't care,
No.
but I know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And so now being able to sit on this in my heart space, it's my safe space now, right? There is a golden flower that is my heart.
I love that.
And sometimes me and my inner child, when we're having a tough time, let's go swing on the set. And the swing set is my heart, the golden leaf, right? The golden flower, just
That's
swinging back
so
and forth.
beautiful.
And we don't even have to say words. Maybe there'll be a song or something. And, just me just in visualizing me hugging her. And I think that's why I like to do this type of work with kids, because I was there. right? I was in that moment of feeling lonely, feeling unloved, scared, not feeling included, but it was all those things, and it was because these kids, that's exactly what you said before, that they're our mirrors,
Yeah.
just like everybody else is our mirror. So when we look at something and don't want to look at it, what is that mirroring for you?
Yeah.
And I almost, not like I like it because it's a challenge, but, I appreciate what it's showing me,
Yeah.
even though there are times I do want to resist and go, no, I don't do that, or no, I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm so glad you've done the work to be able to get to this point and create the impact that you've had. And I'm so glad that you're brave enough to speak about it so boldly and openly. I'd love for you to share any last words you want to say, but also how my listeners can, number one, find out more about the Medusa Project. I have all your links that you sent me below this episode and how they can invest in how they can donate into your project or anything else that you want them to know.
Oh, sure. So the Medusa Project, you can find, we do have a website. The website is just, it's pretty simple. It's just to show people who we are and what we're about. So it's very general, but there is a donate button at the Medusa. It's www.themedusaproject.net. Um, and also, you can follow me on Instagram, and there is also a donation button there as well. Um, but having that source of income, and it's not specifically for me. What I want to do is also be able to provide income with those with lived experiences to come teach me and to come teach other kids, because my nonprofit is going to be geared to hiring survivors and making sure that they are in positions of power and in decision making positions on boards, um, and leading the charge, leading other survivors that come in that are new that want to also help. And we have to make sure that we're not taking advantage of them, because that's just re-traumatizing them all over again. So that is the main point of getting funded. And it also helps with things like, keeping up with the website, and it's to help to keep the lights on
Yeah.
as well. But we also want to create materials. We want to create this website, and um, so that's basically what your money would be going to, for those who do want to donate. It would be greatly appreciated. But the donations currently will be geared towards doing the campaign, getting this materials inside a school, teaching teachers, so then the teachers can just take over and teach this maybe with their sex ed classes that they're supposed to be teaching as well. So yeah, so
Mm.
that's the gist of it.
Thank you so much, Diana, for playing this role in this experience and for being such an advocate for so many others and for all the work you've done on yourself. Thank you for listening to my beautiful audience. I'm so happy that you were able to hear all about her project and her passion and the amazing work we're doing. As always, breathe deep and plan on miracles. I'll see you guys next time.